You want the moon? Just say the word and I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down.
Look at the stars. The great kings of the past look down on us from those stars. So whenever you feel alone, just remember that those kings will always be there to guide you.
I don't think it is very useful to speculate on what God might or might not be able to do. Rather, we should examine what he actually does with the universe we live in.
We are all explorers, driven to know what's over the horizon. The most profound discoveries are not necessarily beyond that next star. They're within us, woven into the threads that bind us.
Good morning, happy Friday, happy Venus Day, and welcome to Mercury Retrograde. It is here, the most infamous transit in astrology. And not only is Mercury retrograde, but Venus and Uranus are also retrograde at the same time. So we can officially call this retrograde season. But what does that actually mean? And how can we best navigate this energy? Well, today I'm going to talk to you about this Mercury retrograde specifically, what areas of our life it will likely affect a little bit more, and then we'll dive even deeper and talk about which area of your chart this Mercury retrograde will activate based on your sign. So we have a lot to go through. We're also going to talk through the weekend because we have a major transit coming up this Sunday. It's going to be a fun show. Get comfortable, get your coffee and join me. I decided to go for kind of a retro cup this morning, the first news station I ever worked at, KSBY, because retrogrades are that time to go back, and it can kind of feel like we are falling back into a past version of ourselves. We're reviewing, we're revising, we're reflecting, we're remembering, all of those words that we tend to use around retrogrades. So Mercury retrograde in Aquarius. It's happening today until February 3rd. The next 3 weeks could bring some tech glitches, some tech issues. I know some people have already been experiencing that, myself included. Yesterday's live stream was pretty glitchy for no real reason. So as you're watching, let me know that you can see me, that you can hear me, that it's all good, making sure we're not having any outages or anything like that. Mercury rules our technology, which is why we tend to have tech issues, setbacks, general annoyances around Mercury retrograde. All right, so Mercury is in the sign of Aquarius right now. Aquarius is the innovator, the rebel, the eccentric of the zodiac. Aquarius energy kind of marches to the beat of its own drum. So Mercury in Aquarius over the past week or two has had us really thinking differently, thinking innovatively, having different communication. Now that Mercury is going retrograde in Aquarius, we're invited to review and reflect on those innovative ideas. So let's just talk about Mercury energy first. Mercury, like I said, rules our technology, but it also rules our communication and our travel. It's known as the messenger planet. So that's why over the next 3 weeks, you'll hear a lot of astrologers talking about double checking your itineraries, making sure not to send that text before you're positive who you're sending it to. Any areas of our life, if you have a trip coming up, really be on top of the details of that trip. Things could get lost in, what's that called? Translation. There we go. Words will be a little bit harder to articulate under Mercury retrograde as well, especially if you are a Virgo, a Gemini, or an Aquarius. This Mercury retrograde will affect you a little more than the rest of the world. Capricorns as well will likely be affected by this Mercury retrograde because Mercury starts moving backwards in the sign of Aquarius, then continues its trek backwards back into Capricorn, where it stations direct and starts moving forward again on February 3rd. So if you have major placements in Virgo, Gemini, Aquarius, or Capricorn, your chart will be activated by Mercury. And we have a ton going on in Capricorn right now, so if you are a Capricorn or have Capricorn placements, hold on. It's probably been a rocky ride for the past, I don't know, month or two. And hopefully things are lightening up soon because, yeah, we have a lot of planets in Capricorn. In fact, things will lighten up over the next month or two. So Mercury retrograde is notorious for those communication issues, miscommunication, conflict because of miscommunication, canceled flights, travel issues, delays. Technology issues are really going to be the focus, though, I think, of this Mercury retrograde, at least the first week or two of it, because Mercury is in the sign of Aquarius, which also rules technology. So check your Wi-Fi. Make sure that all your batteries are charged if you're doing anything that requires a battery for technology. Don't fully rely on technology over the next few weeks, which is easier said than done. I know a lot of people, again, myself included, run our businesses online. So, have patience with technology, have patience with social media. Another little anecdote for you. Yesterday, I was just trying to simply post a reel to Instagram like I do almost every day, and Instagram was not having it. And so the beauty of astrology is that instead of, I did get very frustrated, probably more frustrated than I'd like to admit. But, when we know these things are going on, we can navigate them a little more easily, give ourselves more grace. We can understand there are forces outside of us at play here. We're not just, it's not all random, right? I think that can be really reassuring for a lot of people that the glitches, the issues you're facing, the miscommunication is not random. It's all happening in divine timing to teach us the lessons we need to learn and to help us reflect and review at this point in our lives. And also because Venus is still retrograde until January 29th, communication issues in business partnerships, romantic relationships, friendships especially, will likely happen. Because Venus rules our relationships, how we relate to other people, it rules our money. So not only are we dealing with the communication component of it, but those areas of our life are dealing with a retrograde as well. So, this could look like disagreement, conflict, miscommunication with someone else about money, about love, about needs being met, things like that. And Venus is retrograde in Capricorn, which is really forcing us to assess our long-term goals and commitments and our investments, how we're investing our time, how we're investing our money, how we're investing our energy. And so over the past month or so now, we've really been thinking about those things, reviewing our commitments and figuring out what revisions or tweaks are needed in order for us to feel fulfilled in our relationships, in love, in money. So expect more communication around that, especially when Mercury moves back into Capricorn, and that happens on January 25th. So there will be 4 days where Mercury and Venus are both retrograde in Capricorn. And Uranus, as I mentioned, is retrograde as well right now. It stations direct on January 18th, so next week, which means for about the next week, we have 3 planets. What day is it today? The 15th? Okay, so just kidding. For the next 3 days, only the next 3 days, we have 3 planets retrograde. Uranus also rules our technology. It rules progress. It rules change. And it has been retrograde since August. So if it feels like the energy has been stagnant or progress has been stagnant on a broader scale, technology hasn't really progressed to the point we want it to progress to. We're reviewing our technology. We are reviewing how we're going to innovate, how we're going to change and move forward. I think you know what I'm getting at here. We can expect more forward progress into next week, really after the full moon in Cancer. And I see that full moon as sort of like a culmination point, an awareness of our emotions, because the moon is at home in Cancer, helping us gain a different perspective, just as Uranus stations direct next Tuesday. So retrograde season is we're in the thick of it this weekend. We're really in the thick of it. Give yourself grace, give yourself grace. Give yourself grace. That's the only major transit we're talking about today, Mercury stationing retrograde. And also, don't expect everything to go haywire overnight. Mercury has been in its shadow period for the past 2 weeks and will continue to be in its shadow period for the 2 weeks following February 3rd when it stations direct. So you might have already started experiencing little annoyances, tech glitches, delays, travel issues, communication errors, yada, yada, yada. And, some people dread the shadow period more than the actual retrograde itself, but essentially the shadow period is just when Mercury is slowing down in the sky, preparing to start moving backwards. I talked about this yesterday. It's kind of like that pendulum effect. Mercury is moving forward. It reaches the point where it's about to station retrograde. It hangs out in the same degree for a couple of days, and then it swings backward, and the same thing will happen when it's about to start moving forward again. So we've already been getting a glimpse of this energy. Now it's just Mercury is actually starting to move backward, and we are being forced to review, reflect, revise how we're communicating. And also, because Mercury is in Aquarius right now, not only is this putting a focus on reviewing our technology, reviewing our innovations, same thing with Uranus, because Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, but we are also really reflecting on what causes are important to us, how we fit into the whole picture, right? Aquarius rules the collective. Where do we fit into the grand scheme of things, the state of the world? What are we feeling more rebellious about rather than wanting to fit in, and vice versa, right? So these issues are really going to be coming up. They already are, but they're especially going to be coming up over the next 3 weeks. Take a sip of coffee here. And I would imagine it will feel like a lot of the information, because Mercury rules information, a lot of the information we're receiving or learning will almost feel like we're moving backwards, or deja vu a little bit, like we've heard this all before. We've done this all before. We've been here before. But having to go back isn't necessarily a bad thing. Retrogrades get a bad rep, but this is a chance, if it feels like the world is moving backward or your life is moving backward. It's kind of like, think of it like Back to the Future, right? Marty goes back in time and gets to have this firsthand review of everything that happened. And he gets to understand why things happened the way they did and what the effects of those instances were. So we can kind of, if it feels like life is moving backwards, we can view that as an opportunity to reflect on what worked, reflect on what didn't, make changes, make adjustments, make revisions, so that when Mercury stations direct and we kind of get on with our lives after this retrograde season, we can be in a clearer headspace and have a higher understanding of how to best move forward. And I believe that after February 3rd, when Mercury does station direct, we have all of the planets moving in direct motion at the same time. Like, let's move forward, everybody. I'm not positive how long that will actually last, because I don't have the next retrograde right in front of me at this point, but it does look like February we're in the clear. I don't see any retrogrades coming up for at least, I don't know, April. Yeah, I think April. What is this? Until Pluto stations retrograde. Okay, so we're in the clear for a couple months. Everything is moving forward for a couple months after this retrograde season. That's certainly welcome news. Let's talk about how this Mercury retrograde is going to affect each sign now, and then I will walk you through the weekend and kind of get you aligned to the energy that's coming our way, especially as we're just getting into, like I said, the thick of retrograde season. This weekend might be a little bit intense, an intense adjustment to the current energy, so I want to make sure that you're prepared. But first, let's go through each sign. I'm just going to do a brief little tidbit on which area of your chart this will be affecting. And the best way to understand this, it's definitely helpful if you have a copy of your astrology chart to have it in front of you. Take a look at where 10 degrees Aquarius lands in your chart, because that's where Mercury is right now. Here he is, the little guy with the hat on top of his head. That's how I always think of Mercury. But 10 degrees Aquarius, what is hanging out there in your chart? And take it all the way back into the later degrees of Capricorn as well, because like I said, Mercury is going to go back into Capricorn. So really, the space between the beginning of Aquarius and the end of Capricorn in your chart is what's going to be activated the most. If you have planets there, pay attention. Those planets will be activated by Mercury's retrograde. Also, just Capricorn in general, that area of your chart will certainly be activated, and it has been activated with Venus's retrograde, with that conjunction between Venus and Pluto. We have a conjunction between the Sun and Pluto over the weekend that I'll get to in a few minutes. So the Capricorn area of your chart, that house in your chart, has been lit up for the past couple months. Now we're starting to look at the beginning degrees of Aquarius as well with this Mercury retrograde. So I'm going to when we're talking about how this is going to affect each sign, I'm really only going to talk about the Aquarius area of your chart, but pay attention to the house right before that as well, because that area is, like I said, being activated too. So this is going to be super quick. I'm going to go through each sign and tell you which house this is affecting. Pay attention to your rising sign if you know it. That will give you a more accurate idea of how this energy is playing out, because all the houses in our chart are based on our rising sign. But if you don't know your rising sign, that's okay. Your sun sign, the regular sign that you think of, if you're at that level, this can give you insight as well. So if you are an Aquarius or an Aquarius rising, this Mercury retrograde is happening in your first house and then backspinning into your 12th house. So this can make it feel like you're literally falling back into a past version of yourself. Maybe you're looking for closure, trying to start a new chapter, but don't be afraid to look back into the archives of your life and resurrect parts of your personality that maybe you've forgotten, passions you used to have, little sayings you used to always say. If those are coming back up, why did you stop doing those things in the first place? Ask that. And, maybe this could be a time to reincorporate parts of your childhood or parts of yourself that you used to really enjoy and have kind of fallen away. At the same time, this looks like a real reflective time on who am I, Aquarius? What do I want? Why am I here? What is my purpose? Those questions will likely be coming up for you over the next 3 weeks. And leaning into like spirituality or kind of trying to gain that deeper understanding can give you a lot of clarity during this Mercury retrograde. Capricorns and Cap risings. This Mercury retrograde is going to activate your second house of money. So if you're a Capricorn, you're probably thinking a lot about money anyway. That just kind of comes with the sign. But you know, if you're a Cap or Cap rising, worry tends to be something that maybe you struggle with. So you might be more worried or concerned about financial investments, about physical values, your possessions, right? These are all going to be coming up for you. Keep in mind, Venus is retrograde in your first house. So if you're a Cap rising, you've been undergoing this physical transformation of the self for the past month or so, and reviewing your values, reviewing what's important to you. That's really going to peak during this Mercury retrograde. And it's going to be hard to ignore all those little pings that you've been getting about what is important to me, what do I value. Situations will come up for you over the next 3 weeks that are really going to force you to reflect on those things. And the question for you during this Mercury retrograde, Capricorn, is, what does success mean to me? What does success mean to me? And ask yourself that. Really reflect on that. Take time to figure that out. And also, you know, what did success mean to a child version of you? What did success mean to the high school version of you? What did success mean to the college version of you versus what success means to you now? Reflect on those things. Sagittarius and Sagittarius risings. Mercury is going retrograde in your third house of communication. So as the planet of communication is moving backwards, your communication could go haywire. This brings the potential for misunderstandings, for verbal spats. You know, as a Sagittarius, you probably prefer to be carefree and kind of fly by the seat of your pants when it comes to how you communicate. You kind of like to just say things that pop into your mind, let words flow through you, right? The next few weeks is a time to slow down and reflect on your communication style. Is it the most effective? Is it the most compassionate? Is it the best for everybody involved with Mercury in Aquarius? And, you know, you kind of tend to be eccentric as well, Sagittarius, but maybe review how your words, how your communication might be coming across to other people, and figuring out how to best relay the information you're trying to get across. Also, if you're a Sag, you love travel, double check those travel plans over the next 3 weeks. Scorpios and Scorpio risings. This Mercury retrograde is activating your fourth house of home and family, and this could really unlock some childhood memories for you. It could feel like you're falling back into situations that came up during your childhood. Any skeletons in the closet might pop right out during this Mercury retrograde and come back to haunt you. But here's how to use the energy, Scorpio risings. Heal your inner child during this Mercury retrograde. Pay attention to how you're speaking to your inner child. That's huge. That is huge. And pay attention to how you're parenting yourself as well. Pay attention to your relationship to your mother and family members, but especially during this Mercury retrograde, reflect on how their communication with you as a child affects your communication to yourself as an adult. Really focus on that internal dialogue and how you're parenting yourself. Libras and Libra risings. Your fifth house of creative expression is being activated by this Mercury retrograde, which could feel like that inner weirdo is kind of coming out with Mercury in Aquarius. You might also find your inner child is taking over a little bit in your communication, which isn't always a bad thing, but we know that children tend to have less of a filter and, you know, don't always think things through before they speak or before they take action. So make sure that if your inner child is coming out, it's the sweet, compassionate version of your inner child, right? And also, this is really going to activate your imagination with Mercury going retrograde in your fifth house. So this is a time to think outside the box and think differently. Use that fantasy and imagination to view things differently, to allow yourself to break away from how you've been seeing reality, how you've been communicating, how you've been doing things, and figure out how you're going to do things a little bit differently, how you're going to speak differently, how you're going to communicate differently when Mercury retrograde is over. Really lean into your imagination, lean into that inner child part of you that was carefree and confident in their expression. Virgos and my Virgo risings. You might find yourself doing some deep research about your health and wellness over the next 3 weeks, I should say, with Mercury going retrograde in your 6th house of routine. So new information could come to light that changes your perspective about your health and wellness. You might be reviewing your habits when it comes to eating, when it comes to your fitness, your workout routine. And if you're a Virgo, you probably like to have a routine or a schedule, but this Mercury retrograde could feel like it's throwing you off of that. Just try to stay flexible, Virgo. You're a mutable sign. You can do this. We know you have high expectations, but staying flexible can really help you navigate this Mercury retrograde. If it feels like your routine is being thrown off, welcome the changes as an opportunity to see if maybe there are some different activities or priorities that you want to incorporate into that routine. And also be mindful of the information you're consuming about health and wellness. Make sure you are listening to valid sources. Make sure you're not getting carried away with something that's not fully based in fact. We like the facts, we're Virgos, we're practical, but sometimes it can be easy to go down that rabbit hole or have those strong ideals of what we think is right when it comes to health or wellness. Be open to new perspectives and the new information that will likely come your way over the coming weeks. Leos and Leo risings. This Mercury retrograde is falling in your 7th house of relationships. Lucky you, with Venus retrograde at the same time for a couple weeks. So it will be very tempting to text your ex, to revisit past lovers or friends. This is a moment to recognize how much you have grown, Leo, as an individual. Perspective is everything for you under this Mercury retrograde. If you're in relationship, this is not the time to make any sudden moves. This is a time to review and reflect on your values, how you're communicating in relationship, how you're giving, how you're taking. But also, if you are not in a relationship, this is not a good time for you to jump back into one. If love comes knocking on your door, take things slow and steady. I wouldn't say be skeptical, but make sure you're kind of starting from the basics and going slow and reviewing your values with whatever state you're at in love. Again, perspective is everything for you, Leo. Really celebrate you, yourself, how much you have grown as an individual, and reflect on how you want to show up in relationships. Cancers and Cancer risings. This Mercury retrograde could be a bit of an energetic drain for you, especially because you're probably a pretty emotional being as a Cancer. Nothing wrong with that. Power plays are possible, though. And you Cancers, you can be really sweet and tender and nurturing, but if you feel threatened, those crab snappers come out. So, we Cancers tend to crave security, and it could be tempting to gain security through control during this Mercury retrograde. This transit is activating your 8th house of power and energy exchange. So really protect your own energy and find that stability, find that security, as you probably will feel the need for by seeking internal peace. This Mercury retrograde. Really reflect on what stability means to you, and reflect on how you are sharing your energy, how you are using your energy, where your energy might still be tied, where you might have an attachment that maybe you no longer want to have. And this could be a good time to review those attachments and cut some cords, break some energetic connections, allow yourself to be a little bit freer and sovereign after this Mercury retrograde. Geminis and Gemini risings. Mercury is moving backwards in your 9th house of travel and expansion. So if you have travel upcoming in the next 3 weeks, double, triple, quadruple check your itinerary. Make sure all of the details are accounted for. And I would say do that sooner rather than later. However, this is also your house of adventure. So, you might be feeling like this nostalgic, like, oh, remember that trip we went on when we were in 7th grade and it was so amazing. Let's book another trip like that. Wait to book the trip until after Mercury stations direct at the beginning of February, if possible. I would say that could prevent some headache for you. And take this time, use this energy to do that reflection, to remember fun trips in the past and how much you expanded, how much you grew just from taking those trips and seeing other parts of the world and having different experiences. You could even set some goals as you reflect on how you want to expand and grow in 2022 through travel, through maybe a course you want to take, a higher education course. So review how you want to expand, review how much you've already expanded, and make any revisions so that 2022 can be a big year of growth for you if that's one of your priorities. Taurus and Taurus risings. Mercury stations retrograde in your 10th house, so you'll be very aware of your progress in your career as Mercury begins its backspin. We know you have solid goals, Taurus. Nobody's questioning your goals. You are determined. Just remember to have patience while working towards those goals. Remember that it's not all going to happen right now. And Mercury retrograde could feel like it's slowing you down in your career a little bit. But the key here is to trust that everything is happening for you in divine timing. Trust that if it doesn't feel like you're moving fast enough, the universe is saying you're not quite ready for the next step yet. We need to be here and review our goals, review those long-term visions that we have for ourselves so that we can continue moving in the right direction in our career. So really review your goals, trust that it's all working out in divine timing, and give yourself some grace, Taurus. Aries and Aries risings. Does it feel like you're seeing deja vu with the state of the world, with your friend group, with your community? Yes, it probably does, because Mercury retrograde is landing in your house of the collective, the 11th house. So your communication among groups of people could be affected by this. If you have a group chat with your friends, expect some communication issues in the group chat. And friendships in general could go a little bit haywire for the next couple weeks. Stay open to new perspectives. And Aries risings, you want to go, go, go. We know that you are impulsive and you are like ready to jump into action at all times, but this Mercury retrograde is really a time to slow down for you. And as you slow down, reflect on the causes that are important to you. What message do you want to send? What is truly weighing on your heart that needs to come out? What, like I said, causes or humanitarian issues are really important to you? This is a time to reflect on those questions. And last but not least, Pisces and Pisces rising. Mercury goes retrograde in your 12th house, which is ruled by Pisces. So this is a house you're very comfortable in. For you, Pisces and Pisces rising, I see this Mercury retrograde activating your past lives. So if you're open to the spiritual, you're open to the woo-woo, and you're having weird dreams or like random flashbacks, pay attention to those, because those could be insights about past lives you've lived, or, it could just be that past experiences are kind of flashing into your mind. And in my opinion, that is kind of the same thing as a past life. We are constantly evolving and changing, and in our life, we live multiple lifetimes. So if it feels like the past is coming back, this could be a chance, this Mercury retrograde, to gain closure from those chapters that might have some loose ends left open. If you are feeling a little lost and you're feeling called to learn more about your past lives, I would say a past life regression reading could be a really great opportunity for you to give you some clarity and purpose for this lifetime. So that could be an option for you to use this Mercury retrograde to your advantage, Pisces and Pisces risings. But pay attention to any visions, insights that come through either in your dreams or your waking life that feel familiar, that feel like you've been there before. I would say deja vu is going to be very active for you over the next few weeks, Pisces. All right, those are all the signs. Now I'm going to quickly walk you through the weekend and the energy coming our way. So we'll start with today. We already talked about Mercury stationing retrograde. That happened early in the morning, I believe about 3 a.m. So it's here. Mercury retrograde is upon us. Today, the moon hangs out in Gemini. It's last day in Gemini, really allowing us to focus on communication. We can express our emotions more easily with the moon in Gemini. But now that Mercury's retrograde, just make sure you're choosing your words wisely. Journaling, talking can be powerful tools for processing emotions under the Gemini moon, but I'll say it again, make sure you are choosing your words wisely. The moon formed an awkward angle to Venus retrograde overnight, and as we're waking up this morning, I just see that as like a reminder, like, hey, there's a couple different planets retrograde right now. We're in the retrograde energy, you know, bringing an emotional awareness to all of the backwards energy we're feeling right now. And you might be still trying to adjust to life on rewind during retrograde season. That's okay. Give yourself some time. At 10 a.m., so actually let me pull the chart up here. This is happening as we speak. The moon is coming into a conjunction with Black Moon Lilith. This isn't something we talk about a whole lot, but Black Moon Lilith represents the moon's farthest point in its orbit away from Earth. So when we have a conjunction, this literally means the moon is as far away from the Earth as possible, which can make us feel like our emotions are slowing down, because during the moon's orbit, it appears to move faster when it's closer to us and slower when it's farther from us. This is called apogee in astronomy. So in astrology, it's kind of considered a weak point for the moon because we're like more detached from our emotions when the moon is farther away from us. This is really a time to slow down. And as Black Moon Lilith rules our shadows, rules the part of ourself that maybe we keep hidden or that has been oppressed, we'll be more aware of those things. And this is a reminder to pay attention and acknowledge our shadows as we head into retrograde season. And also reminds us, in true, Mercury retrograde and Aquarius fashion, that it's what makes us different, let me say that again. Black Moon Lilith reminds us that it's what makes us different that makes us powerful. You can think of Black Moon Lilith like your inner witch or your inner bitch. So it could be tempting to let her out. Just, again, be mindful. Communication issues are definitely on the menu. So be mindful with how you're communicating, but pay attention if you're feeling like angst coming up. That's a good indicator that there's something you've been repressing. All right, so repressing, reviewing, we are looking back, we are gaining clarity about the things that we don't normally acknowledge. The moon squares off to Neptune around noon today. And this could just cause a little bit of confusion in the middle of all these planets being retrograde. This causes a clash between our intellect and our emotions. It can make us a little bit more sensitive. It could be easy to get carried away with a feeling without knowing all the facts during Mercury retrograde. So journaling, creative expression in some way can help you move emotions through you productively without getting into any sort of verbal miscommunication, because remember, other people might be confused or not seeing clearly as well. Today, not really a great day to take action, not only because the moon is squaring off to Neptune, but by 6 p.m. Pacific time, the moon opposes Mars, the planet of action. And with this opposition, It's like the moon, our emotions have a different motivation than Mars, our actions. So we can be more impulsive, we can be more reactive, we can feel the need to do something if we're feeling anxious or irritated or confused. But again, channel that excess energy into a productive outlet, movement, creativity, anything that's going to get you out of your head a little bit more, because Mercury retrograde can definitely put us in a head spin. And the last connection the moon makes this Friday is at 11 p.m. Pacific time, so overnight for some of you. The moon forms this awkward angle to the sun, making us feel a little bit out of sorts. I think by the end of Friday, we're all going to be aware that things feel different. Mercury retrograde, Venus retrograde, Uranus retrograde, this mashup of backwards energy has us feeling some sort of way, but it could be hard to identify how we feel. It just feels kind of awkward by the end of the day today, and it can be challenging to express how we feel, to understand why we're feeling certain things. The key here is just, again, to give yourself grace and make sure that you are taking care of yourself and your body, and just kind of slowing down yet again. The sun in Capricorn is that slow moving energy, but the moon still in Gemini is that fast moving energy. So it can kind of feel like our emotions are coming through pretty quickly, but the sun in Capricorn is in the background reminding us like, hey, we don't need to move that fast. Let's just chill out, okay? We don't have to have it all figured out. It's okay if we don't know why we're feeling what we're feeling. Just let it move through you. Just let it move through you. Okay, let's quickly walk through Saturday and Sunday. And yes, don't text your ex, especially you, okay? I'm talking to you. That's my partner, so he better not be texting his ex. All right, let's move on to Saturday. Just a couple things to note on Saturday, which is nice after everything we've just talked about. We'll take it. We're only talking about the Cancer moon on Saturday as the moon moves into Cancer. First at 1 a.m. Friday night into Saturday morning Pacific time, the moon forms an awkward angle to Pluto, as Pluto and the sun are very close to one another, coming into a conjunction with one another on Sunday. So, of course the time zone changed. Here we go. So when the moon forms this awkward angle to Pluto, it's kind of that same energy of feeling kind of out of sorts, feeling like we don't really fully understand how our emotions are coming up, why we're feeling them. And overnight, pay attention to what dreams you have. This is subtly reminding us when the Gemini moon makes this awkward angle to Pluto of the death and rebirth cycles happening all around us. What's going on in the background? What's hiding beneath the surface? Your dreams could give you clues. If you're having some weird dreams, look up the meaning of those dreams. It could be your subconscious trying to make sense of the energy right now. But as you wake up on Saturday morning, just take some time to reflect on what is hiding beneath the surface. What is going on in the background as the moon makes this kind of uncomfortable connection to Pluto, the planet of death and rebirth. And then the moon is void, doesn't make any more connections in Gemini until it enters Cancer at 8:30 a.m. on Saturday. So the void moon means don't start a big project before 8:30 a.m. on Saturday, at least Pacific time. If you're on the East Coast or anywhere farther east than that, then you're going to wake up feeling in a very different energy on Saturday morning. And that's a good thing. It's kind of nice to wake up in a new energy. But the moon, so don't start any big projects until Saturday really gets going when the moon moves into Cancer. The moon in Cancer, the moon is at home in Cancer. So we are much more aware of our emotions. We're much more in tune with our emotions. We're much more aware of our body and how to nurture it when the moon is in Cancer. And the full moon lands in Cancer on Monday. So we're really getting to that culmination point. I feel like we're getting to a culmination point emotionally. We're going to be really aware of our heightened emotions, and our sense of security, our sense of safety will really be activated by this full moon in Cancer. So a great way to use the energy of the Cancer moon, especially over the weekend, if you are trying to stay home or you don't have too many plans. Tend to your home, tend to your environment. Cancer rules the home. So finding physical security around you and feeling really comfortable in your physical space can help you feel more emotionally comfortable, help give you some clarity to navigate retrograde season a little more easily. And keep in mind, our intuition is heightened under a Cancer moon, so pay attention to what your gut is telling you, what your body is telling you, and that could be really helpful for you. The only connection the Cancer moon makes on Saturday is at 3 o'clock Pacific time. You see, you guys, my communication is already getting jumbled with Mercury retrograde. And Mercury is my ruling planet too, so I always feel like I can't speak properly during Mercury retrograde. Just be prepared the next 3 weeks. I'm just warning you. But 3 p.m. Pacific time, jump ahead a few hours here, the moon forms this nice harmonious flowing angle to Jupiter in Pisces. Both the moon and Jupiter will be in water signs. Both the moon and Jupiter will be in their home signs. Really a nice transit that's going to dominate our Saturday, giving us that dose of optimism, maybe a little boost of luck. Our emotions will flow with abundance when the moon forms a trine to Jupiter. So don't be surprised if you're a little overly emotional, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Releasing emotions can be really healthy and really positive, actually, under this transit on Saturday afternoon. And it doesn't have to be like negative emotions. If you're crying, if you're letting it out, more power to you. Like, release it, let it go, let it go, let it go. But emotions overflowing with abundance can look like a laugh attack. It can look like just an overwhelming amount of joy or compassion or sympathy or empathy. So when I say emotions, I don't just mean the negative emotions. This can be positive emotions as well. And any sort of emotional release can help you gain that optimism, feel a little bit better, and believe in the path you're on and that you're guided and it's all going to be good. Also, that release of emotion can help you remove any obstacles standing in your way from really working towards your goals or standing in your way from fully feeling safe and believing in yourself. Because we are working up towards this full moon on Monday, this waxing gibbous phase is the time to refine and remove any blocks standing in your way. So that emotional release can be a way of removing blocks. Allowing yourself to fully feel things can really help you gain a deeper understanding of your place, where you're at, what you might need to work on, and what your strengths are, how you can create more safety within your own body and within your own life. So that's Saturday, pretty simple day. Sunday is when we have another major transit. So let me pull this up here. The sun forms a conjunction to Pluto at 7 a.m. Pacific time on Sunday. Now we had Venus conjunct Pluto on Christmas Day. And I mean, you'll see all these planets have been really huddled in Capricorn and Aquarius for the past month and a half or so. So by 7 a.m., just go ahead a couple hours, you can see the sun and Pluto are at the same spot in Capricorn, 26 degrees in Capricorn. Pay attention to what's at 26 degrees Capricorn in your chart. There could be a massive change in that area of your life. And you know, we're seeing collective change as the U.S. is going through its Pluto return. Its Pluto return is exact on 2/22/22. Pluto gets back to the same spot in the sky that it was at when the Declaration of Independence was signed in 1776. So over the past couple years, we've really started to see structures crumble as Pluto's in Capricorn. We've started to see more of an awareness about patriarchal structures and systems and who they're not working for, what needs to die in order for a new version of the U.S., a more updated version of the U.S. to be born. When the sun forms a conjunction to Pluto on Sunday morning, though, This looks more personal. This could literally look like an ego death for you, especially if you're a Capricorn rising, like ego death is on the menu on Sunday. This could be a rebirth of yourself. Ego death doesn't have to be a bad thing. It allows for a rebirth. Remember, facing your shadows allows you to see the life. Letting things die makes space for a rebirth, for the new. And if you're someone who's been proclaiming like, new year, new me, Sunday's your day. Sunday is your day. This is your chance. This is your moment for a new year, new you. We can experience a transformation of self. We can experience a transformation of our purpose, of our long-term goals, of our subconscious desires with the sun forming this conjunction to Pluto. This can bring about a massive shift in your own consciousness. And remember, just by shifting your consciousness, you energetically shift the consciousness of the entire world. It's all connected. We're all connected. But in order to fully get to that point and see a new light, we have to face our darkness. And that's what this sun forming a conjunction to Pluto, merging with that death and rebirth energy, is all about. We're more aware of those cycles of death and rebirth. It can feel on Sunday a little bit like we're plummeting into the depths of ourself, of time, shedding those old layers so we can become new again after this retrograde season. So pay attention to the massive changes happening around you, the changes in your mindset as well, the changes in your ego. Like, let's all do a little ego work on Sunday. I think it would be really beneficial with this conjunction between the sun and Pluto. The moon in Cancer gets busy on Sunday before it becomes full. So in the middle of the night, 1 a.m. Pacific time, the moon squares off to Chiron. And this clash with Chiron can really bring up those shadows, those pains, those wounds. Pay attention to whatever your emotions are telling you. Pay attention to what your body is telling you. That could be a clue as to where to investigate, right? What to review, as we're talking about Mercury retrograde, what to reflect on. Even intense or painful dreams can be clues about where we need to do a little more work this retrograde season. What wounds are being triggered that we can really reassess and embrace, we can accept and transform and move forward from past pain, past patterning with this Mercury retrograde season. The moon forms an awkward angle to Mercury retrograde at 3 a.m. So kind of that same energy, like whatever is coming up for you in your dreams over the weekend or just in waking life, if it feels like past wounds are coming up or past communication issues are coming up, it could make us feel like we don't, it's easy, especially to just be like, no, I don't want to deal with this, but really try to pay attention to what's coming up for you. And also, when the moon forms an awkward angle to Mercury, it's at 3 a.m. Pacific time, so it could feel like our mind, our mental state is really far away from our physical body. If you are someone who astral travels or has intense dreams, like this could be a really intense night of astral travel for you, or it could just feel like you're kind of out of body, like you're daydreaming, you're floating off into a different space when you're waking up on Sunday morning. But at the same time, 5 a.m. Pacific time, I told you it's going to be back to back to back on Sunday. The Cancer moon gets support from Uranus, which is also retrograde, but we don't feel it's retrograde as intensely just because it's a longer transit. However, this support from Uranus can help us work through change, see things in a more innovative way. We can really start to integrate the lessons we've been learning. If we're more aware of our pain and our wounds, we can do something to try to change how we process those things. We might be more aware of how different we feel as well since the new moon in Cancer 6 months ago as we prepare for Monday's full moon. On Sunday, the Cancer moon gets support from the planet of change, rebellion, innovation, reminding us how much we've changed, how much we've innovated, how different we are from 6 months ago or even a year ago. The moon forms another awkward angle to Saturn at 11 a.m. on Sunday. So this reminds us early in the day, fairly early in the day on Sunday, of our responsibilities, of our duties. This could look a little bit like Sunday scaries. Although our emotions tend to flow more easily and we're more attuned to them under the Cancer moon, for a few hours in the afternoon on Sunday, we might be more restricting or repressive of our emotions and really more in our rational mind and more protective of ourselves, of our families, more rational about, okay, here are the things we have to do before the weekend is over so we can set ourselves up for success in the coming week. Kind of have that like dose of reality, which it's not a bad thing. It's productive, but it's not always the most fun, especially for a Sunday. And then the last transit we're talking about for the weekend is an opposition between the moon and Venus retrograde at 1 p.m. Pacific time. So I would say out of all the transits on Sunday, this is the one we are going to be feeling the most. So let's fast forward here. The moon in Cancer opposing Venus in Capricorn, really making us emotionally aware of all of the lessons we've learned, all the things we've been reviewing about love, relationships, money, long-term goals, while Venus has been retrograde over the past month. This can also make us feel like especially needy for affection or pleasure. We can have this overwhelming desire of safety and security with these two bodies, the moon and Venus, and the most protective signs, Cancer and Capricorn. So it could be really easy on Sunday afternoon to fall back into that comfort zone. The planet of love and money is retrograde in the sign of security. So, it can be really, again, don't text your ex. Don't fall back into the comfort zone. We're growing here. We're innovating. We're moving forward, even if Mercury and Venus are retrograde. We're likely to reach for anything familiar to feel good on Sunday when the moon opposes Venus. So stand strong. Make sure you're making healthy choices. Really, if you find yourself reaching for that comfort food, reaching for that comfort person, reaching for the remote to turn on the comfort show, those aren't necessarily bad things, but it's an opportunity to reflect on how you self-soothe, on what pleasure means to you, what security and safety mean to you. Retrogrades are a time to revise. So if you are reaching for something quick to feel good and it's not necessarily aligned with your values or the person you're becoming, just take note of that and ask yourself how you can do things a little bit differently under Venus retrograde and Mercury retrograde. How have you become more aware of your values over the past month? And how are you going to make changes or adjustments in order to better align with those values? All right, guys, that was a lot. That's the full weekend. Yeah, we got a lot of energy coming at us. Next Monday, we'll talk all about the Cancer full moon because we're coming up to that as well. So we'll be feeling that energy a little bit more over the weekend as our emotions are building, as the whole collective emotions of the world feel like they're building a little bit. Let's do a brief overview and then I'm going to do a card pull. So I'm just going to focus on the general energy coming at us this weekend. Mercury is now retrograde in Aquarius, the sign of innovation, rebellion, and the sign of doing things differently. So over the next 3 weeks, expect some issues in the areas of communication, travel, and technology, all things ruled by Mercury. Specifically, because this retrograde is in the sign of Aquarius, pay extra attention to your technology and be patient when it comes to technology and social media. This is really a time to reflect and review. If it feels like you are falling back into the past, the world is falling back into the past, find the opportunity of how you can do things differently moving forward. On Sunday, the sun comes into a conjunction with Pluto, marking a pinnacle point in the death and rebirth cycle we've been experiencing. We'll be more consciously aware of the changes happening all around us. This is a chance to let the old ways die as we're reflecting, as we're reviewing on the old ways, so that we can be reborn so that we can rise like a phoenix from the ashes in that Pluto energy. This is a time of change, and this is a reminder to move through it slowly, move through it with intention, move through it with compassion for yourself and others. And over the next 3 weeks, don't be afraid to make changes, make those revisions so that you can align with your values and with your best self for the rest of 2022. All right. I'm going to do, for this long video, I'm going to do a 3-card pull from the Modern Witch Tarot deck. I'll do a pull for each day. I think that that will be the most effective way to understand the energy and understand the message that we need to hear. So as I'm doing this, this is your chance, as always, wherever you're watching, to ask questions. Let me know what your rising sign is and how this retrograde is going to be affecting you. Pull the digital guidebook up here and let's shuffle. The card I just saw at the bottom of the deck, sometimes I pay attention to the cards that pop up while I'm shuffling, is this card. It's like, everything is fine, and she has all these like swords in her. If that's not Mercury retrograde energy, and she's on her phone, if that's not Mercury retrograde energy, I don't know what is. Like, everything's fine while the world is just falling all around you. Let's do one more shuffle. Oh, that was a terrible shuffle. Okay, we'll do one more, guys. This is a thick deck. There we go. I wish I had like a shuffle cam, like a poker player. Feels super cool. Okay, what do we need to know? Okay, 3 cards. Here we go. The first card is the 7 of Wands, and it pulled in reverse. So let's start there. Gotta find it. Give me 1 second. This requires some scrolling, but hey, it's environmentally friendly to have a digital guidebook, right? Let's see. The 7 of Wands is our card for today, for Friday. Here we go. 7 of Wands. Your fiery drive has given you the strength and willpower to climb to the top of the cliff, only to have others try to knock you back down. You've succeeded and you're feeling strong, but others may be jealous. They'll try to make you feel like less and sow seeds of doubt in yourself. Don't let them. You deserve to be here. Fight for yourself. Interesting card to pull on the first day of Mercury retrograde. And I think, you know, this doesn't have a specific description for pulling cards in reverse, but I would say with Mercury retrograde, yes, fight yourself, no, fight for yourself, not fight yourself. Fight for yourself, know your worth, understand your inherent value and what you bring to the world, but this doesn't necessarily give you permission to fight other people. So, you know, if other people are trying to knock you down and you have been feeling good about yourself, that's an opportunity for you to reflect on your boundaries, for you to reflect on how you're communicating with other people, how you're showing up, and the people you're surrounding yourself with. Mercury is in Aquarius, the sign of community, and this could be a big indicator that you are not surrounded by the best community for you if other people are trying to knock you down. So I would say this card is telling us to reflect on the people that are around you, and it's not worth getting into a fight with someone who doesn't actually respect you. That's what I'm going to say about that. The second card we pulled for Saturday is the Knight of Swords. The Knight of Swords. What does this mean? What does this mean? The Knight of Swords. Bursting onto the scene with fervor and confidence, the knight rushes headlong at their obstacles without a second thought. They are passionate and fully self-assured in their intelligence and opinions, but they're sorely lacking compassion and heart. If the knight is you, it is time to second-guess yourself. You are probably a bit cold and overconfident and possibly afraid to show some vulnerability. It's left you imbalanced and ill-prepared for what lies ahead. Okay, perfect card for Saturday as the moon moves into Cancer. This is your chance to be vulnerable, to really check in with yourself, with your heart, with your compassion before you charge forward like the knight. It can be tempting, especially with Mercury retrograde. You know, it can leave us feeling out of sorts and feeling a little bit anxious and like we need to take action, we need to do something differently, but slow down. And this message is connect with your heart. Make sure how you are treating other people, how you are communicating with other people is empathetic and compassionate and graceful before you charge into the next phase. That's the focus with the moon in Cancer. And then our last card we pulled, the Eight of Cups for Sunday. Eight of Cups. What does she mean? What does she mean? She means it's tough, but whatever you've been pouring all your love and emotions into, you need to step away. It's just not working out. It's time to say goodbye and move forward. It might be very difficult. You've invested a lot of your time and energy into this after all. But wisdom comes from knowing when something is hopeless, learning from it, and moving on. A perfect card for the Sun-Pluto conjunction this Sunday. A perfect card because it's all about releasing, letting go, letting the old ways die, cutting those attachments that have been holding you back. Pluto is the planet of death and rebirth. The Sun forming a conjunction with Pluto brings those things to light, illuminates the cycles that need to die. The Eight of Cups is just affirming this. You've invested a lot of your time and energy into the things that you have energetic ties to, but that doesn't mean they're meant to last forever. Wisdom comes from knowing when something is hopeless, learning from it, and moving on. Wisdom comes from knowing when to let go. Wisdom comes from knowing when to cut the cord. And that can give you a lot of clarity and just like allow you to have that breath of fresh air. Gosh, Mercury retrograde. You know, doing a cord cutting or releasing attachment, releasing that energetic tie to something that's no longer working can help you see different perspectives and understand how to do things differently during this Mercury retrograde. It can really help you use the energy of Mercury retrograde more effectively. So, I love when the cards affirm everything. We've got a wild weekend ahead of us. This is a time of change. This is really going to be a time of change over the next week. Flow with it. Lean into it. Give yourself grace. Give other people grace. Grace is what I'm preaching today. And yeah, most importantly, give yourself some compassion. Slow down. Give yourself a chance to adjust to the energy that is changing all around us. Good morning, Susan. Thank you for being here. And same to you, Crystal. I so enjoy you showing up to the live streams. I know this has been a long one. I will break up the bottom of the video into sections. So if you want to come back and revisit Saturday, Sunday, check out how Mercury retrograde is specifically going to affect you based on your rising sign. I will have easier ways to navigate it in the next couple hours. So thanks for being here. Thanks for watching with me live. Thanks so much for the encouragement, Danny. I appreciate you. And I hope that this Mercury retrograde gives you a new perspective and helps you review what's important to you, review how you're communicating, review how you're showing up in the world, review the people you're surrounding yourself with, and gain that clarity and that perspective coming out of this retrograde season. All right, this has been awesome. Thank you for being here with me. We'll be back next week talking all about that Cancer full moon on Monday morning. Don't you worry, we'll walk through it together. If this video helped you out at all, gave you some clarity about Mercury retrograde and the energy to come, please like and subscribe. It's the easiest and free way to support these live streams and all this information that I'm putting out. And if you are feeling a little lost during retrograde season, I'm here for you. I got you. Head to thespiritualjournalist.com/readings and book an astrology reading with me, and we can really dive into your chart and what's being activated for you during this retrograde season. That's actually a really great way to use retrograde season, especially in Aquarius, is to gain that understanding and really reflect on your own makeup and your own energy. All right. I hope you're having a beautiful Friday. I hope Mercury retrograde doesn't throw things off for you too much. I hope this live stream wasn't too glitchy. We'll find out if we had any tech issues once I stop the stream. And yeah, give yourself grace. Give other people grace. Have a beautiful weekend. I'll see you right back here on Monday morning. But until then, stay curious. Thank you so much for joining us and aligning with the energy of the universe today. If you enjoyed this morning's episode of Transits Today, you can join our live astrology discussion every weekday morning right here wherever you're watching. And head to thespiritualjournalist.com to read your daily astrology forecast and browse the Spiritual Shop. The most fun way to help keep these forecasts free and support more content like this is to buy yourself a little something on our website. But if you're feeling extra generous, you can also buy me a coffee to fuel future live streams. Just tap the link in the description or head to buymeacoffee.com and search The Spiritual Journalist. And speaking of, you can also tune in to The Spiritual Journalist, our weekly live interview where we ask our guests questions about everything from crystals and manifestation to mental health and the environment. Those conversations stream live right here wherever you're watching now every Tuesday. I'm so grateful you found us here, and I can't wait for our next conversation.